is being reauthorized by Congress during this next session. What are we doing to inputs to change the regulatory process to make sure it's effective and more transparent to the farmer? I, as a farmer, when I filed a complaint, I never met with the investigators. They never seen my paperwork. They never spoke to me. They go talk to the broker. If they believe his story, that's the end of the investigation. You, as the farmer, cannot even find out what they told, what the broker told the investigator. I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this. I suffered a large loss that changed my life forever. This should not be. That process should be transparent, should be inclusive. I've worked with Neil Hara, I've worked with Professor Weisler at Iowa State. We have some genuine concerns. I appreciate your comment on this.
Well, this is a federal regulation, not state, so we don't have direct input, but obviously when farmers that are constituents of ours in Iowa lose because of something like this, it's something we're concerned about. So, well, I would encourage you to work with the Congress. As you said, this is up for reauthorization. We need to have a simpler, more transparent regulatory system to protect the interests of farmers. You're probably also aware the former governor of New Jersey was involved in another very similar situation there.
Well, if I may elaborate just one minute.
No, I'm talking about the guy that was the former governor of New Jersey.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to I'll keep talking on these.
So you had more.
If I may elaborate a little bit, but they are regulated by their own association. They're self-regulated, these commodity brokers. They're regulated by a non-profit organization called the National Futures Association, which is not even registered to do business in the state of Iowa.
Okay.
We require all corporations, foreign, domestic, or whatever, to be registered at Secretary of State's office.
Right.
I
They're
was
not
in your
registered
office
at all.
a couple days ago, checked at the Secretary of State's office, they're not registered. I met with Secretary Norley, I've been working with Senator Branstad's office. Next September 4th, I have a
Meeting?
I have a conference call with Senator King's office and the CFTC. We have a commissioner that's from Iowa, Mark Region, that's originally from Dubuque, that stays on the CFTC board.
Okay.
We need to have comments made to them, and I would appreciate your office doing that in support of this being addressed, and that they.
If you can give us some background, more information on this, I would be glad to comment on this.
I would appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Julie Vanderhook in our office, I
Yeah.
think she will work with you.
You met with Julie?
In your office on Thursday, you
Okay,
were there
so she
shortly,
knows.
just for a minute.
Yeah.
And
Julie Vanderhook, she's the one, and she grew up on a dairy farm up over in Jackson County, and she's the liaison to both agriculture and natural resources. But if you could work with her on our staff, and she can help us develop a statement in support of what you're talking about here.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people that lost out in that deal.
Well, we also had MF Global. There's
Yes.
been two of these large brokerage companies that have went down. And the regulation of, which is called the NFA, that does the regulating, we've had congressional hearings where they say, don't hold us for responsible, we didn't know what was going on. That's not the way a regulatory system should work.
Right.
I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate your concern, and we know that a lot of people lost big time on these things.
Well, it's just something that needs to be addressed so that it doesn't happen in the future.
No, you're exactly right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My name is Brooke Bemler, and my question is about campaign finance reform. I think it's just fine that voting residents of that particular district contribute to a campaign. However, it's been my observation when the special interest group, lobbyists, and corporations, both in the district and outside the district, contribute, that's when the problem begins. When entities, not people, get involved. What if those outside contributions were donated back to the communities that the politicians represented, to support organizations and projects that help the communities grow and get stronger? Imagine what good could be accomplished if those outside monies were given to help strengthen our communities instead of buying influence with our politicians. What are your thoughts on this practical idea?
It sounds like my wife's ideas, actually. So my wife has very similar feelings about this. Now, here's the situation. I agree, I would prefer to see contributions just come from within the district or from within the state. However, pretty hard when your opponent gets huge amounts of money from outside the state to say, no, we're gonna limit ours to just be within the state. I will tell you, back when I was a state representative, I used to only take contributions from within my district. And I sent back any checks that came from PACs or groups outside the district. When I ended up running for statewide office, I said, well, I found out it's a much bigger and more expensive proposition. And so, but I think, first of all, we should have full disclosure.
That's what
Full disclosure of all contributions.
Yeah.
And also I would tell you that corporate contributions are forbidden in Iowa. Some states are legal, but they're not permitted in Iowa. However, PAC contributions are legal. And there are labor unions and businesses and many other interest groups that do form PACs. I will also tell you that in my campaigns, and I've been through 12 of them, on the average, 90% of our money has come from individuals. And probably about 90% or more has come from within Iowa. I have run against opponents that got a big chunk of their money from out of state. So I understand your concerns, but I think the best thing we can do is have at least full disclosure. I don't think we can prohibit out-of-state contributions, because I think there's probably a constitutional argument on interstate commerce that you know, and things like that.
My suggestion is for you to take the money and then give it back to us in the community.
Okay.
Donate it back to us,
We're
which is a
limited
little
to
tough
what
on
we
the
can do with it,
campaign.
though.
I
That's
understand.
the other problem.
I
I mean,
understand.
there's only about 3 ways.
I think you can contribute to a charity or to the
Okay, to
your
a charity,
political
you
party.
can do the political
I
party.
think you can.
Okay.
And that my wife thinks it ought to be all contributed to charity instead of spent on political campaigns. But then,
Thank you.
she's never been too crazy about politics. Other questions? Yes, sir.
I appreciate the fact that you put a lot of money into education, but I've got a few concerns since my grandkids have just started back to school.
Yeah.
I've been here for a few problems. I've heard the Common Core, I've heard Iowa Core, I've read a lot on the internet, and I don't understand it all. But I know that they've got certain courses that they're taking this year that they can take, if they can flunk like the first 4 tests, they get an A on the 5th test, they get an A on all 5 tests. I don't know where that comes from.
I don't know where that's coming from. Where are they?
Math.
Let me just say, we just established a, what's it called, a reading resource. I just met with the new director for the Reading Resource Center yesterday. This has just been established. One of our problems is we have never had an effective assessment system to determine whether kids are learning to read. And I mean, there are different plans in different schools that try different things. But we need a comprehensive, clear-cut approach where students can be measured and are they learning to read, because that's so fundamental. If they don't learn that by the time of 3rd grade, they're not going to succeed. And so we recommended this last year, and it was approved, and $2 million was appropriated by the legislature. It's been established. I met the woman that's been chosen as the director. Her name is Mrs. Haas. I think she's a really good choice. She's a graduate of the Peabody College at Vanderbilt University, which I think is the best teacher preparation program in the United States. I visited there a few years ago when I chaired the Commission on Excellence in Special Ed. A lot of kids end up in special ed because they don't learn reading. And the result is they keep falling further and further behind, then they end up in special ed and never get out of it. I believe that this approach can help. It's going to be available to all schools so they can put in place a measurement system where they can assess whether their reading programs are effective or not. Now, this thing about being able to flunk 4 tests and then pass the 5th one and get an A, that's crazy. I mean, to me, I think you got to have fair and accurate assessments, and you need to be able to measure on that, because that tells you whether kids are learning or not.
But as we meet with business and industry, I mean, so it's reflective of what we're hearing from businesses as we travel the state, and that's why it's been so important for us to really have accountability, to have transformational change in our education system. Our kids are going in the wrong direction as we put more money into the system. We're trying to reverse all that. I mean, they don't have this, they're not able to communicate, they're not able to do simple math. That's why the STEM initiative, I mean, we need for kids to see for themselves that they can do it, that the math is relevant, it's fun, it impacts everything that they do moving forward. That's why at the Reading Resource Center, when we can start to identify, there's school districts out there that are doing great things and there's some that's not. And so we want to be sure and get the help and the tools to the areas that need, that aren't getting the results that our children deserve. I mean, we need to make sure when they leave high school that they're ready for a career or for post-secondary education, and that's just not what's happening. It also impacts the cost of education when over a third of the students have to take remediation at community colleges. So we're doing a disservice to our children by not making sure that we're giving them the best education possible.
Where do the funds come for all this analysis and?
Well, it comes, first of all, there hasn't been hardly any of it done in the past. So what you did, there wasn't accountability. Now, we have $2 million that the legislature appropriated, and that is what is funding the Reading Resource Center, and they are then the ones that are providing this to local school districts. Now, we also, as part of the education reform that I talked about earlier, are providing some funding that's going to be phased in over a 3-year period for teacher leadership, where teachers get paid more for taking on more responsibility, to be teacher leaders or mentors, or coaching other teachers going into their classroom to help them improve their skills, with a focus on improving the achievement of the students that are in those classes.
I mean, there's several school districts that have already implemented that without the legislation being passed. It's North High School, right?
North High School is
an
one which used
example.
to be one of the worst in the state.
And they've gone from bottom, dead last, to middle of the pack, in the middle, in 3 years, and they're implementing a lot of the reform that we're talking about. So there's examples out there that demonstrate it can really be successful, and they have some really significant barriers at that school.
And I just chose the new director of education. His name is Brad Buck. He has started out as a science teacher in Ankeny, and then he was principal, I think, in North Mahaska and Hudson, eventually assistant superintendent in Waukee, and then became the superintendent at Sadell. And Sadell is it's on the north side, it's right by the Firestone plant or Bridgestone tire plant. It's one of the poorer districts in the Des Moines area. He's really done a phenomenal job in also implementing this teacher leadership program there, and he's been able to get the support of the teachers to embark on this new approach, which is what we need to get the teachers and administrators throughout the state to work with us on this to make, because the only way this works is if we get buy-in from the people that are actually in the classrooms that have to implement.
And this was, I mean, they were on board with this. They were at the table and really helped design it. So they want to have more coordination and collaboration with their peers in the education. I have 6 grandchildren, so I'm watching it too and paying attention. And our oldest one just started kindergarten this year. So, and my youngest daughter, his daughter is a teacher. So we're paying close attention to what's going on. It's important for our state and to keep our young people in the state.
Another thing I want to talk about is you have to have some diversity.
Yes.
Common Core seems to me like you're trying to make everybody the same.
I guess what I'm saying is, we need to have Iowa standards that measure what students need to know and be able to do at each level along the way. So basic things like reading and math, but they shouldn't be just limited to those. They also need to include the arts, because the arts are important. They really teach problem solving and things like that, and creativity. And those are very important things for the workforce of the future.
We need to bring everybody up, not bring it down.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Kids will perform to the expectations.
We need to set high expectations, and then we need to have fair, accurate measurements that can be timely returned to the teachers so they can see this kid's getting it and this one isn't. So they can do what needs to be done to help those kids that aren't getting it to get it. And that's especially important in reading with these early grades. And that's what our whole Reading Resource Center is designed to try to do. Give them information they need so that the teachers have the tools to help the kids that aren't achieving what they
Get
need.
behind with reading.
Oh, yeah, you
it-
can't do anything, you see the
Exactly.
math and science books, I mean, you're in trouble.
Right.
You're in trouble. Appreciate the question.
Yeah.
I have another question with the Common Core. How, in Iowa, are federal funds
No, no
accepted?
federal
Oh,
funds.
Good,
There are no federal funds.
Should be.
because my concern with accepting federal funds, will we lose control as to what we're
Right.
doing in
There-
education?
Okay, some states have gotten federal dollars under this Race for the Top grants. Iowa did not get any of that. And the state has actually developed its own standards, and then have also, the State Board of Education adopted the Common Core standards. But we think we need to go beyond that, because those are just limited, as I understand it, to basically reading and
Yeah.
math.
Science,
Be-
It's coming.
Because my concern is I've seen different shows where they did accept the federal funds, and the state then lost control as to what the programs and stuff we were teaching.
And they've indicated, they've talked about